I'm ready whenever you guys are. You guys are muted, so we can start.
Getting started so that we're somewhat on time?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. That would be great.
All right. Good evening, everybody. It's July 14th. We're going to call our Finance Committee meeting to order. If we could first rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I believe it's.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. All right. Patricia, can we please have a roll call?
Okay, Rebecca Bear,
Present.
George Andrews, Wayne Roner,
Here.
Rich Davis, absent, 3 present.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
A motion to approve the minutes from our previous meeting?
Second.
In favor?
Yep. Aye.
All right. Our first item is a discussion and presentation from PFM, Ms. Jamie Doyle.
Okay, Jamie.
Oh, the podium is not even set up. No.
Well, if the microphone's not working, I can just stand
You're
here.
more
That's
than,
okay.
you're more than welcome to go over to the microphone. I just feel badly.
Why don't we move that in the middle?
I'm flexible.
Okay.
I'm good with this.
Perfect.
This.
We'll look over there for you.
Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here this evening. With me tonight is my colleague Carly Kiesling. This is Carly's first trip to East Stroudsburg.
Welcome.
But,
It usually is beautiful in the Poconos.
yes, and it was quite an experience. I've never driven here in quite so much rain. Your streets were interesting to navigate.
Yeah, clearly stormwater is impacted. You're right.
A little bit. But anyway, you each have a hard copy of my handout, and Rebecca, hopefully you have one as well.
Is that the same one you emailed, Dr.
Yes.
Vitale?
Yes, it is, Rebecca.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
So I'm gonna move quickly through this so we can leave plenty of time for questions and answers. Because we were contacted and asked to discuss the concept of a debt restructuring, which, you know, this is not the first time the district has done a debt restructuring, but it's been a really, really long time. I think back in 2009, we did a debt restructuring. And so if you look at page 2, I always like to start off just talking for a second about interest rates and market conditions. So this chart may look familiar over the years.
So that's page 3 on our page numbers.
Okay,
Just so you know.
all right.
And then the back.
Did you copy the one that I had sent after our call?
Just,
Or did you copy the one that was on our call?
I might have an older one then. I have an older one.
Because we changed it slightly after the call.
Okay, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay.
I have the old copy. Matt and I are gonna look together.
Thank you. So there is a difference.
So is mine different?
Apparently.
Is that different?
It is your interest rate chart on the inside cover, page number 2.
Now I'm on page 2.
is that new one?
The one Jane gave you is the same. Yeah, the one I handed out is
This one here, okay.
the one that was from after our call.
Gee.
So interest chart wise, this is the tax exempt V-Val chart, which stands for Bloomberg valuation. What the top chart tells us is the yield curve is still fairly flat, blue line. It tells us that the short end of the curve at which you invest money is still very attractive. Right now, your liquid investments should be in the low 4% range. So, you know, meaningful, they've been meaningful for the last year or two, unlike the prior decade or so when you were hardly earning anything on your investments. And as you look out the blue line on the long end of the curve, the rates at which you borrow, you can see they're pretty much right on historic averages. They're pretty darn close to the red line all the way out the curve. And so, you know, those are important considerations when you think about the debt restructuring, because we're gonna look at your debt portfolio in a second, but you have really low interest rates on all of your existing debt in your debt portfolio. So, you know, you give some of that up if you undertake a debt restructuring. Middle snapshot is the same index, just going back to 1993, so you can get a more historic perspective. And bottom chart, same index, just focusing in on calendar year 2024 to present. So you can see as you look at that lower right-hand corner, that big spike upward was in April, had to do with the tariff talk. And you can see how things have calmed down pretty considerably since then. If you look at the next page, there's just 3 bullet points there, because the 3 main things we want to focus on to illustrate a debt restructuring is first and foremost, you know, we may need to refine and understand your goals and objectives a little bit better as far as how much you're looking to restructure. And in that second bullet point, this is a tight timeline if you want to consider it for the current fiscal year. Most of your principal payments occur on September 1, which means in order to access those September 1 principal payments and restructure them, you know, you'd have to make decisions pretty quickly. You'd have to access the market pretty quickly and get to settlement no later than September 1. You know, a big chunk of the timeline, and we're gonna look at that in a minute too, is the DCED approval process. So that takes a minimum of 20 days. They get to approve any debt undertaken to the district. And it needs a few days added on at the beginning of that, because part of that submission is the newspaper ads that bond council places when you do any debt issuance. So, you know, you're gonna see this in a minute, but it would be a very tight timeline if you wanted to do this for this fiscal year. And that third bullet, super important. Whenever we think about a debt restructuring, you know, we have to get it past bond council, they have to put their stamp of approval on it, and the key words are useful life. So all of your debt, except for maybe one issue, is refundings of older debt. So we have to trace that debt all the way back to its original new money origins and its original projects that it financed. And we can't stretch the debt out further than the original useful life of the assets that were financed. So that's important. You don't usually have to think too hard about that when you're doing a plain vanilla refunding, where you're putting the bonds back in the same spots that you took them from, and just, you know, simply reducing the interest rate across the board. So if you look at the next page, you'll see your debt portfolio. So if we did nothing, as always, the top half of the page is gross debt service, meaning principal and interest. The bottom half is your local share, because you still receive some old grandfathered plan con reimbursement on some of your issues, and you can tell which ones by near the bottom, that line that says PE percentage. If there's a percentage on it, it means you're still receiving that old grandfathered plan con reimbursement. And so the takeaway on this page, we continue to monitor it for refunding opportunities, just like we always have. But if you look at column 24, that is the total net effect each year on your budget. So principal plus interest minus grandfather plan con reimbursement. So you can see you're pretty level at about $15.3 million over the next several years. And then you have a significant drop off in fiscal year ending 2031. And then, you know, it continues to drop after that as well. But the big drop off is until 2031. So that's important also as we think about restructuring, which means scooping principal out of some of those upfront years and layering it in, really starting in 2031 where that big drop off is. So that's what we're going to illustrate. So if you flip back to page number 6, which has a blue column and an orange column on it, this is the summary of pretty much the rest of the pages. This is a pretty complex topic, and we're trying to boil it down to one page so that you can see how this might work. So in column 3 in the black, that matches the prior page. If you did nothing, you keep making the annual payments that you see in column 3. In column 4, we focused in on your 2017 AA bonds. And we did that for a couple of reasons. You know, if you're flipping back and forth to the debt summary page. We did it because it's the issue that has a lot of principal up front. It has one of your higher interest rates that you're paying, albeit it's still really low. It's about a 2.68%. So still really low in the grand scheme of things, but it is one of your higher rates in your portfolio. And most importantly, it has a pretty clean, useful life history, which is the part that we have to get bond counsel's blessing on. So that's why we focused in on this series of bonds. There are other iterations of this restructuring concept, but you know, this is the option that we think you could get done by September 1 if you wanted to. Other options, I don't think would get done by September 1 because they're gonna take a lot more research and buy-in from bond counsel. So in the blue column, what this restructuring would entail is restructuring about 15,875,000 of those 2017 AA bonds. And the end answer is it would cost you more because you're paying off principal more slowly, you're stretching this debt out over the life by 4,286,000, and that's a little bit conservative. You know, we're always a little conservative this early in the process. And then when you present value those dollars back to today's dollars, the present value cost is $530,513. And what that means down below in column 4 is we would scoop out of the current fiscal year $8.8 million of payments. Again, this is if we can settle by September 1. And in 2027, next fiscal year, we'd scoop out another $5,077,000 of payments. And then we would put that debt or layer it back in, would begin in 2028. But most of the principal, as you look down column 4, you can see would go into 2031, 2032, 2033, where your old debt otherwise has those big drop-offs in column 3. So that at the end of the day, if you did this particular scenario, in column 5, you can see what you'd be left with. Your net payments for the year between the restructured debt and the portion of the debt portfolio that we wouldn't touch would be about $6.5 million, you know, down that 8.8 million that we looked at in column 4. And then in fiscal year ending 2027, your all-in would be about $10.2 million. And then you would have 3 years where your debt would be not only what it was before, but a little bit higher because of the interest on that debt that we're pushing out to 2031 through 2033. And so, you know, this is you might say, well, why would we do that? This is a short-term solution to buy you time to make other decisions that may increase revenues or decrease expenditures and, you know, fix any structural deficit that you may be experiencing. So that's the most important page in here. I'm just gonna really quick walk through the mechanics with you on the next several pages. So page 7 is your 2017 AA bond issue in its entirety. You did nothing. You keep making the payments on this page, and what you're looking at in column 3 is the coupons. So you can see they're all higher than the 2.68% that I mentioned earlier, but that's because these were all premium bonds and you received more than 100 cents on the dollar at settlement. And when you blend the coupons and the prices together, that's how you get the 2.68%. So if you did nothing, you keep making the payments on page 7. Page 8 shows the portion of those 2017 AA bonds that would be involved in this restructuring option. So you can see it's all the principal in the current fiscal year and next year. The next page, page 9, shows the part that we wouldn't touch. So you keep making the payments on page 9 on the remaining portion of the 2017 AA bonds. Page 10 just shows how much money we would need to pay off the restructured portion of the 2017 AA bonds, principal and principal. And then page 11 is the backup page that matches that summary. Again, you can see in column 2, we would have minimal principal during those overlap years with your old debt service, and then all the principal would basically be structured out into 2030, 2031, 2032. I would also point out on this page 2 things. The box at the bottom of column 11 that's shaded slightly gray, the present value of 0.1%. So if the interest rates that we're assuming here, which are a little conservative, if they go up or down by 1/10%, it changes that answer in the box, that $4.2 million cost over the life by about $83,000. So it's pretty sensitive as rates fluctuate. The other thing I would point out is you'll notice on the lower left-hand corner, the PV percentage. So this is one of the series that you're receiving that old grandfather plan fund reimbursement on. And PD has what's called the never pay more rule. And these are rules you don't often hear about, but they come into play when you're considering a restructuring. So you'll notice that the PD percentage gets diluted a little bit. On page 11, it's 11.15%. And before, if you did nothing, it was 14.06%. So we're taking into account that never pay more rule, because PD, you're gonna pay more interest now, because you're stretching this out a little bit in this scenario, so they won't share in that additional interest, basically. That's what the never pay more rule effectuates. And then, if you turn to page 12, there's a sample motion at the top if you did want to proceed with this scenario, but I want to just focus on the sample timeline in the middle so you can see what I mean when I say this would be a very short timeline. In order to, and backing into this, in order to effectuate a restructuring by September 1, settle on September 1, that means we have to be basically locking in the interest rate and having the sale by the end of July. It means that tonight's a presentation to the finance committee, and we need to come back basically next week with a parameters resolution if you wanted to be able to settle by September 1. So it is a very fast timeline. But, again, we wanted to show you what is possible in the current environment. I'm gonna pause there. I think that's a good place to pause and get your thoughts and any questions or again, input that you have regarding the objectives of this potential restructuring.
So we're restructuring about 15 million,
Yes,
so we'll have 15 million more in this year's that we can play with versus it, but because we're spending around to.
you'd have 8 million, if you go back to page 6,
8
you have about 8.8 million in this year's budget of relief.
Yeah.
Compared to, what I'm sure is built into your 25-26 budget.
It goes over 2 years,
And then an additional 5 million and change in next year's budget. So it just buys you a little bit of time.
and that goes with, we're supposed to have a 23 million deficit this year.
$26 million deficit this school.
And so we take the 8 million off, like from 26
It would bring it down.
to 8, bring it down to 18 million.
So it's 8.8 million that would come off this year. So it brings it down to almost 17 million.
Correct.
Yep.
I'm just making sure I'm reading it right.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of numbers.
That's
There are.
It's an awful lot now.
Yes, I apologize for that, but
No.
the summary page on page 6 is the most concise
Yeah.
way to look at it.
Can we talk about fees?
But that principal 15 million is for over 2 years, so it's.
Yes, yep, about
It's
8 million this
8.8
year and
and
5 million
5
next year, yep.
And Rebecca, you had a question about fees?
Yes. I want a fee breakdown. There's nothing on here about fee breakdowns,
There's not, because it's a little early, I wanted to see how.
but at least your fee should be on there.
I'm sorry?
At least your fee should be on there, what you're
Our fee-
charging, if you have an
I'm just
idea, a
anticipating that-
ballpark idea of what,
I'm sorry. I'm anticipating and assuming the fees are very similar to what you've paid historically. Is what we have built in here as assumptions. And as always, we'll bid out as many of those as we possibly can. We'll utilize the dual track process, just like we have on your last several transactions, meaning we would need to literally send out the bank loan RFP tomorrow. And those are non-binding. I know there's nothing official about the finance committee meeting.
So we don't know if we're going bonds or bank.
No, because we would compare both, just like we have on your last several
As I
transactions.
said, yeah.
This is a little bit big in size, 15 million is a little bit big for a bank loan, but it's still pretty short, so that is conducive to a bank loan. This only goes out to 2033, so it's still fairly short in the grand scheme of things. But to your point, Rebecca, yes, absolutely, you would get an itemized list of cost of issuance, just like you always do. And I would start to collect those after tonight's meeting in preparation to start the dual track process, if it's the finance committee's meeting intent to continue on that timeline that I laid out.
So if we go RFP and say, best case a bank does it, there's no bond counsel fee for that. So that would be out of the picture because there's no bond counsel to review those.
You
'Cause we're
would
not
still have
doing
bond counsel, he would be called note counsel, because you still need him to do the DCD filing and give the opinion of tax exemption and do all the things he does on. You know, a bond issue, and he's been involved on your last 3 issues, which were all bank loans.
Mhm.
What you don't have on a bank loan, and again, all of this gets factored into the true interest cost, so bank loans typically have a higher rate. But lower costs at settlement, and bond issues have a lower rate, a higher cost of settlement, so we factor that all into true interest costs when we're comparing the two. But what you don't have on a bank loan is any bond insurance premium. And you don't have the underwriter's commission, which is
Mhm.
your broker dealer whose investors buy your bonds. So those are the two that I think you're thinking of, Rebecca, on a bank loan,
Say that again, it doesn't have the underwriter and what else?
bond insurance.
Thank you. I'm doing my best to keep up with you.
And the ratings, or do we have to pay for the ratings as well? Or is that
No
included with
rating
bond
on a
counsel?
bank, no rating on a bank loan, although, you know, we did have some conversation with Mr. Mirabelli, your consultant, and with Matthew as well. You know, you get annual surveillance on your credit rating, you still have an excellent AA3 credit rating right
Today.
now. And you get annual surveillance, you know, sometimes the rating agency, you don't even know you're getting annual surveillance, they just look on Emma and get your audit and your budget. And they do their surveillance. So, you know, they're going to be looking at that, focusing on that when it's, you know, your year's up. Usually that I think is around March or so is when they'll really be looking.
So my question in regards to the rating, will our deficit that we're proposing affect our rating, in your opinion?
It likely will, yes.
So that could also be an issue that we would face, is our rating possibly could be less than it's been in the past. And the bond might not be as attractive, if you will, to buyers because our rating is going to go down because we're showing a deficit for the first time.
And that's part of what we're gonna compare all of that in the dual track process.
And I just want to be clear, we're not showing a deficit for the first time. The 24-25 showed a deficit as well. So there
Right,
was
but yeah, that's what I mean.
deficit.
The first time showing it, and they're not gonna rate on future, they're only gonna rate on last year's, what they see.
Yep,
So for the first time, we showed a deficit, which is going to negatively impact our credit rating.
correct.
That was my question.
Yes,
Yes.
So our bond rate possibly, and our loan rate could possibly be higher than we anticipate because we showed a deficit.
Correct. And like I said, we're being a little conservative in this analysis, so we're taking that into account.
And then all the debt that we are putting off, we pay two years out from now, correct? We're adding that debt on slowly, 700,000, 700,000, and then 5 million, 5 million, 5 million hypothetically.
Right, and the 700,000s are mostly interest, there's 5,000 of principal in there, and that was on page number 11, you can see the principal amortization, so, you know, the bulk of that 700 to some thousand is interest, bridging the time until you have that big drop off in your portfolio out there in 2031.
And our hope is that our outlook is better in 2 years than it is now.
It gives you time to work on a plan.
interventions.
Yes, because I mean, you know, your choices are to increase revenues or decrease expenditures, and it's probably a combination of both.
Correct.
but it buys you a little time.
And remember, with the staff tax equity grant, we continue to get more from that tax equity. So this year, we're realizing that 5.5 million. Next year,
Right.
it'll be 11 million. Then the next year after that will be 5.5 million more than that.
And then I know this isn't related to PFM, but some other debt that could possibly come on is if we continue to purchase new buses as we did last year, which we spent 5 million on.
Yeah, it was like 5.6 or 5.7 million. So the former CFO decided to do 2 years worth of cycles in that. So he purchased for 24, 25 and 25, 26, which
Correct.
broke our cyclical process. It would never be close to 6 million again. It would be 2 to 3 million, but I would say that at a certain point, we need to look at, can we extend the life of our bus instead of keeping a 5 to 6 year cycle process? So those are all things that we would need to look at kind of what our cycles are, and can we start to draw them a little longer? Also, if we look at 3-tiered busing, which is something that you guys have approved for a Bell study. So right now, 2 tiers where secondary goes at one time and elementary goes at another time. If we go to a 3-tiered route, we would actually need less units of buses, so that would impact it as well.
Right, because that's just something I'm thinking about going forward is we have this
Absolutely.
looming bus debt as well as the looming, of this in 3 years, this bill is going to be higher. And then so will the bus debt be higher then because it's going to be part of that cycle.
Correct. And I would say my suggestion would be to kick the bus purchase down the road a year or two and let's start extending the life. And the reality is that we have working buses up at the north lot that we're trying to sell that we cannot sell.
Correct.
Can we put them back in service?
That's a really great question.
What was that question, George? I missed
Can we
that.
put them back in service? It's a conversation we need to start having.
I'm just trying to look at the big picture of the debt. That's all.
Read it again, Rebecca?
I said, I'm just trying to look at the big picture of the debt.
Yeah,
And if it makes sense to extend debt out when we're going to be increasing debt based on the bus cycle at the same time that our payments would drop off is the same time that we would be potentially purchasing more buses. So the debt that we're saving now is going to be the same, if not more, if we go on stay in that same bus cycle. So in my head, I'm like trying to wrap my head if it makes sense.
So we
Because of that.
a little bit, because our last conversation with your prior CFO was that you weren't borrowing anything for buses in calendar year 2025. Remember, the IRS thinks in calendar years, not in fiscal years. So if you look at column 5 on page 6, let's say, and I don't know what the number is, just from your conversation, let's say it's 3 million. Okay, so as you look at column 5, if you did that in 2026, we'd structure the debt over fiscal year 27, 28, 29, 30, and we left a drop off in 2031 for other things, whether it's buses or other capital needs. We didn't fill in tight in 2031 and 2032. We could fill in a little tighter than that, but we're trying to preserve flexibility for you for the future because we know you'll have other needs.
yeah, that makes sense.
So, we'd be able to do a wraparound of bus debt, kind of like we did last year, and put most of that principal out there in 2031, where you'd still have a pretty substantial drop off.
Okay.
So great point, Rebecca, and, we're trying to take that into account, knowing that you don't know exactly what that'll look like.
Right, because if it happens to be in 2031 that we're, acquiring the bus debt again, so that 5 million that we're already paying more than we would have, we're going to be paying, say, $6 or $7 million.
Right. But
So it's a lot to think about.
It'll feel like
that
we-
increase debt.
you're at 16 million the year before, so it'll still feel like a pretty substantial drop off. And I know you all know this, but I would be remiss if I don't say it. Once you get past 2030, whether you're at the 15.3 million that you're currently at, or whether you're at the 16 million that you're seeing in column 5, Any of those dollars, when they drop off, that are absorbed into your regular operating budget, it will be hard to get them back for debt service should you have big capital needs in the future.
Because you're adding $10 million to the budget.
Adding to,
Meaning if we drop off and we get $10 million back to our general operating budget, when we go to do a building project, it's gonna hurt.
You'll have less to work with, less to wrap around, because you've been using wraparound debt service structures for a lot of years. Meaning, waiting and taking advantage of the drop off and then filling the new debt in behind there when those dollars free up, so that, you don't have as many new dollars to find in your budget.
So I guess my bigger question is our district in maybe a 10-year span built a brand new district, right? So we built an entire North Campus, rest got ESE, Middle got a revamp, James Hill got some work, Smithfield got some work, this campus was redone. In a short time, every facility was touched. So we don't ever want to be in that space again.
Right.
But what is a healthy debt service for a budget our size? Do you understand what, like, my question is like, what is that sweet spot for us?
You probably wanna be somewhere less than 10% budget debt service.
Okay.
Less than 10% of what?
Of your
The
total
budget.
budget. You want less than 10% goal.
And I mean, that's where we're at, because we're at, okay, so we're in a good spot currently.
Yes, which is reflected in your credit rating at the moment.
So, and we had spoken about our credit rating kind of at length when we met last week, that although it could be negatively impacted with the deficit, if we are able to explain out the interventions and that it's
Yes.
still less than 10% of our budget, that it might not have as detrimental of an impact
Yes.
as we think it could.
Rating agencies look for trends. So, you had a deficit last year, deficit in the current year that's a bit more dramatic. They look for trends and, they know times are tough for Pennsylvania school districts. You're not alone. And they don't always expect you to have everything solved to the penny right this second, but they do want to hear about what your plan is, what actions you're taking. They want to know if you're willing to make those tough decisions. That's the rhetoric they're looking for.
Okay. Any other questions?
no,
Thank you for coming out in this weather.
Absolutely.
Thank you for your short turnaround. I know we asked you to turn this around quickly and we're asking you if we move forward to turn it around quickly. Thank you for walking a novice educator through debt service. Truly, I appreciate it. I'm learning a lot in a very short amount of time. And then I would say, they'll make a recommendation tonight. My hope is that they make a recommendation to bring it to the board and allow the board as a whole to make a recommendation, and you can be available via Zoom
Yep.
to help
Yep.
answer those questions.
And just a reminder, I know I said it earlier, but, if the finance committee thinks that this is a possibility, I really would need that info request back tomorrow. And I really would need to put the bank loan RFP out on the street tomorrow. And, we do like we always do, we send a distribution list of all of our banks and your local banks, and you get to bless it before we send it. And then, it would have to go out tomorrow to make this timeline work. And then if the board says, nope, next week, we don't wanna do this. It's
We
just
just-
not binding, no harm, no foul, just
Okay.
say, nope, they're going in a different direction.
7:30 tomorrow morning, you and I have a call plan.
Absolutely,
I look forward to it.
looking forward to it.
But if we don't do it, tightens our, money spending we can do, right?
this
If
year.
if we don't do it, then we're at a $26 million deficit.
That's what I'm saying, so.
Correct.
if
Yep.
we- Tightens us what we can do.
Thank you, Jane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
oh, in the financing industry, Jamie, your business hours is at 7:30 in the morning, is that what I'm hearing?
I make accommodations for my best clients.
I may have made that request. Listen, I didn't say a 5 in front of that, I said a 7. I was very respectful.
Especially when the week when I work
There's a 5.
a decent hour.
Like this morning, I walked into this building at 5:05. So. Yes. So 7:30 to me is like late.
Yeah.
I had.
That's like a lunchtime.
Getting close to it.
Correct. All right, Rebecca, are we ready to move and groove?
We are. All right. So next up on the agenda, we have the approval of the Keystone Fire and Security 5-year internal sprinkler inspection proposals for Smithfield Elementary, Middle Smithfield, and High School South. Any discussion?
4A.
Right here.
4A.
Right here. 4.
4A, sorry.
Yep. Any questions in regards to that?
No.
Nope. Okay. Then we have the approval of the sale of 18 cardiac science G3 AED units that are approaching the end of their lifespan to trade in Cardio Partners trade-in program for an estimated value of $1,800. Do they refurbish those?
They find alternate use for them. I don't exactly know the specifics, but I know that we're able to get some sort of financial back from that to purchase new updated ones. So yes.
Okay. And that is the next item on the agenda. The approval, or actually the disposal of 11 of them, G3 AED units manufactured prior to 2011, which are no longer eligible for trade-in due to reaching the end of their lifespan. Okay. And then if the next one is approval of an internal institute agreement for restorative practices, 13,600. Is that the program we've been using in the past?
So this is so restorative practices is something that, yes, we are actively training. As of this spring, we have over 100 faculty and staff trained in restorative practices. We had a train the trainer who retired. This is to send some of our people to become train the trainers so that we have internal capacity to train. When we wrote the PCCD grant last school year, which is a 2-year grant, this was embedded in it. So this cost is already allocated out of PCCD and the grant was already awarded to us.
Awesome.
Right now, it handles a 4.
Hold on, my computer was dying, so I closed it.
And is the goal to get all the teachers trained?
This is just train the trainers. So how many train the trainers will we be sending?
Hold on one second, I'm pulling up my computer.
Okay.
See, for a 3-day training, 2.5 hours per day. Up to a maximum of 10 staff.
10 staff. Okay. Any questions in regards to that?
And George, you asked if we were planning on getting everyone trained.
Yeah.
It's a lofty goal considering there's 600 professional staff members.
And
But we are going to try to get most of ours trained. Yes.
do we do it by MTSS grouping of that?
I believe we did it, some administrators, some school counselors, some MTSS coordinators, some special education teachers. And now, so we were really intentional with a small group and now we just keep widening who's getting it done. Yep,
General teacher.
correct.
Okay. Item E is approval of purchase for Lakeshore Learning furniture at a combined price of $44,519.78 for 2 special education classrooms. Is this being paid for by Access?
Which one are we talking about?
Yes. So this is because we are opening 2 new autistic support programs in 2 of our elementary schools so that we are not sending them out to IU20 and we're keeping them here in their community schools. So this is to outfit those very, very specific needs of those classrooms.
Okay. And we don't have any I know before you got here, we made several purchases of classroom furniture for special education. That was one of the things we bought a lot of.
Yeah, I've put a lockdown on all furniture purchases,
Okay,
and I've
that's
read
why I was
every
surprised
single
to see
thing,
this.
just so you know. Mr. Kraus and I have been very, very closely watching this.
Okay. And we don't have any furniture from our replacements that would meet the needs of a classroom like this. It has to be purchased.
So, yeah, so autistic support has just very, very specific sensory needs,
Okay.
and modality needs that what we have in storage wouldn't be effective for them.
Okay.
Two schools over doing it.
Smithfield and Middle Smithfield, yes.
What do we do with all the furniture that we have in storage? Just out of curiosity.
Honestly, we keep it in storage, and as furniture breaks, we have replacement furniture.
Okay, so we don't have to buy any more. Okay,
Correct, yep.
okay. Because we have an abundance of that.
We absolutely do. Active conversations here at the district office about the volume of furniture that we have. And for a while, there was excess, hold on, let me say this slowly. Excess access funds. So they were just buying furniture to spend down the access funds. We are no longer doing that model.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. Any other questions in regards to the furniture? Nope. Okay. Then we
No,
have approval of the yearly Renaissance products and services for interactive learning practices for teachers and students. What is that?
I'm pulling it up very slowly.
It's renewal from Mr. Bora.
So this is Nearpod, which is a resource that our teachers use, and Mr. Borash and Mr. Snyder have literally gone through every single web-based platform that our teachers use, and they've cut back significant. So this is about half the cost of what we've used in the past, and it's an online platform that our teachers use for strong instructional practices.
Okay.
Brian, are you on? Do you have anything else?
What's the program?
I'm here.
Nearpod, right, Brian, is Renaissance?
That is correct. Yes.
Okay, and what do
Okay.
they use it for?
Yeah,
I couldn't have said it better myself than what you just stated.
Why, thank you, kind sir.
I didn't hear.
He said I said it wonderfully. He couldn't have said it better.
And what's it used for then?
Brian, what do we actually, what is? It's an interactive instructional delivery platform.
Oh,
So we use it in the classroom for presentations and gathering information from students.
okay.
And it's about engagement. Yeah.
Is
Okay,
that K through 12?
I'm sorry?
Is that K through 12?
Yes.
Okay.
My guess is it's mostly at the higher secondary level, just because our little friends don't necessarily navigate their computers as well.
Gotcha. All right. Next up is our bread and dairy bids. Any
Yeah.
questions in regards to that?
I hope.
Okay. Next, we have H and I, which are both change orders for the high school north and the high school south scoreboards. What's changing really? And why did the price go up significantly?
Rebecca, it looks like we're paying for caissons for the footers.
Paying
The
for what?
change
What is
order
that?
was pretty vague. It just said poor soils.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, because I was confused on what they were trying to do. Like if it just,
Yeah, there's not much information on the change order.
yeah, it was very vague. That's why I was confused
Yeah.
on what it was.
High school.
Both of them. North was about 13,000, south was about 21.
21.
All right. All right. Next up is our invoices. Any questions in regards to the invoices?
No
Hearing none.
questions.
Okay. And then we have our applications of payment from 1 through 5.
Yeah, I have no questions.
No
Any
questions.
questions? All right. And we have nothing from properties and facilities since they did not meet, and nor did education programs and resources. Do we have anybody that would like public participation at this time, either online or in person? I don't see anybody in your room, and I don't see anybody online, so my assumption is no, but just to make sure.
That is an accurate assumption.
Okay. All right. So let's make some motions here.
Let's do it.
All right. Let's start with PFM. How do we feel about bringing it to the full board for a decision and to hear the presentation? I think we owe it to the board for them to hear the presentation.
Sure.
You know, I still have questions, but I'm going to hopefully, if you could, Dr. Vitale, email me the updated presentation so I can just take a look at that as well.
It's the same thing, just in different order.
Oh, okay, perfect. Okay.
Yeah, it's the same exact content, just in different order, because I offered her feedback, that we needed to get to the actual blue and yellow graph faster.
Gotcha.
Because she went over like the process, and that was like a half an hour of that. So I said, I need to actually get to the numbers right away with our board. So
Okay.
she moved pages around.
Okay. And in the meantime, I'll do some research on, you know, the fees and see what going rates are so I can make an educated decision personally. Just being in the industry, I want to make sure that, you know, I really wanted her to state what her fee is, because her fee is what the fee that PFM would charge. Bond console is depending on the size and the depth of what we do, as well as, you know, the other items. But PFM's fee should be pretty transparent, but I was waiting for her to say what it, you know, usually it's a percentage of the cost that the financial advisors charge to do what they do, and it's not on there. And that was what I was trying to get her to say. Like, this is, you know, what we charge our clients, you know, between 0.25% and 0.75%, and like an idea of what her rate is, but she never wants to say it. And that's what I was trying to get her to say. But so I'm just going to do some research just for myself to see what, you know, going rates are for advisors right now to do this for school districts, as well as the other costs. So I'm comfortable making that decision. But I think we owe it to the board to move it forward and let them at least hear it and make their own decisions.
Motion to recommend. George, second.
All in favor?
All in favor, yes.
Okay.
George,
Yes, what?
there's
Okay.
a motion.
All right, we'll do that. And then we have items to move forward.
She is making a recommendation to bring this to the full board, but she is going to do research on the fee structure.
I can't
Mhm.
Okay, yep, I
I seconded, okay.
thank you.
All right, and then we have motion to move forward items A through K. Any questions in regards to A through K?
Trying to find you here. A through K, yes. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. All right. Our next meeting is scheduled for Monday, August 11th at 5:30 via Zoom and YouTube. And I think I'll be remote again because I have to be in Michigan for the 12th, but I'll be here.
But we'll see you next week, right?
Yes, I will be in person. Right now, I'm in Rocky Mount, North
All right,
Carolina,
safe travels.
the
Yeah.
halfway point.
Right.
So do I have a motion to
there,
adjourn?
Rebecca?
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All right, we are adjourned, and I will see everybody next week in person for the school board meeting.
Yeah.
Yes.
Have a good
And it's,
trip.
just so you know, it's sunny here, no rain.
Thanks for rubbing it in, Rebecca. Safe travels.
All right, bye.
Okay.